Alright, I think we're live. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody going for Pixel Chatter number 15? Wow. That's pretty cool, isn't it? 15. Well, just back from my recent trip. Let me get these things working here. Here we go. Alright. So just back from my recent trip over to the southwest of WA. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully some of you followed that on social media. And going to be getting some more things happening. Some more vlogs up on the channel over the next... Well, you should see one, I reckon Monday night I should have one up, which would be cool. Just making sure all the settings here are working. If you're in the chat box, say g'day. G'day, Brian. How are you, mate? Alrighty. YouTube have changed their interface on me, so it's making it a little harder. But that's alright. I'm having a crack. Trying to get it all working. Alright, exciting show today. G'day, Tommy from Hong Kong. Good stuff. Okay, looks like everything is working, which is good. All right. Everything is working. You can hear me clear. Gianni. Well, it's supposed to be 36 degrees today in Sydney. That's what I've heard. That's the rumour. I don't know what it's going to be like where you are, but the rumour is it's going to be pretty warm here. Let me look at the weather on the phone. What's the weather going to be like where you guys are? It'll be pretty warm here. Yeah, 36 they reckon. All right. Well, let's get stuck straight into things. Tommy's in Beijing today. You're always all over the place. G'day, Jeff. How you going? Who else have we got there? Yeah, anyway, I was on my trip over to WA and managed to meet up with Ren Thielen. Now, Ren, I don't see Ren in the chat box yet, but I'm sure he'll jump on. Quite often he does. But it was great to meet up with a VIP whilst I was in WA. So we shot a place called Clifton Lake and had for sunset and had so much cloud there was no sunset, and there was huge mozzies trying to carry us away. But you know what? It was good to catch up with him. I hope it hasn't smashed his thoughts of the vlog, because now he's seen all the behind the scenes rubbish that goes on and how much mucking on goes on and silliness when we're out doing the vlog. So there you go. Good morning, Chance. Good morning, Anthony. Good to see you all in the chat box this morning. Alrighty. So, first of all, just a couple of things. Just a reminder, if you're not already, jump onto social media and connect with me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram pretty actively. I need to get much more active on my blog, don't I? It's a bit inactive, but things have been pretty busy. In fact, leading up to my trip away to the southwest of WA, I had a fair bit on work-wise. I was running some events through September, and I was travelling a fair bit to make that all happen, and then a lot of work went into making them happen. So I was so busy, I didn't get hardly anything done. So the good thing is I'm now past all of that, and I'll be getting the vlogs up on a regular basis and making sure that happens, which is good. Let me just see who else is in here. Francisco Costa. Good night from Portugal. Good evening. All right, so let's jump straight into things. I've got a couple of things to let you know about. One of the cool things, last couple of years I've worked together with Fuji. As most of you know, I love my Fujifilm gear. I've got the XT1 and the XE1. I've never upgraded either, funnily enough. I know a lot of people love to upgrade, and I used to be one of those people who always upgraded when the latest thing come out, and I am tempted to go to the XT2. But I'm using the Fuji less these days. I'm falling back in love with the Nikon, even though it's heavier. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, having said that, one of the guys that is in the marketing team here in Sydney, his name's Lee Diprose, great guy. And he invited me a few years ago to be involved in an event called People with Cameras that Fuji hold on an annual basis. And it's a great event. It's about getting photographers together. They set you a bit of an assignment. You go off and you fulfill the assignment in groups. You get put into groups. And then if you have the best images, you win a prize. And now this year, I think the prize total is... I'm just trying to find it. The prize total, over $2,500 worth. So it's pretty cool. Hey, Mazen from... not sure where you are, but anyway, g'day Mason, how are you? I think I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, so Fujifilm run this thing every year in Sydney and in Melbourne. So if you are in Sydney or Melbourne, I'm going to be at the Sydney event, which is at the end of October. It's on Sunday, the 29th of October. I'll put it up on the screen now so you can see. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Can I zoom my screen in? Let's see. Oh, yeah, there we go. People with cameras. Now, I've put a link in the description down below the video so you can register. It is free to come along, and it's cool. So you can see that I think they must cap it off at 600 tickets or something. There's 545 remaining. I don't know why that is, but maybe it is limited. Okay. But it does get packed out. You'll see here's a video from the previous that was last year's. And I've been supporting it now for a couple of years. A lot of cool fun. So you can see it's a 3 p.m. start. You form a group, 4 to 5 other photographers. You go off and you do your photography challenge for half an hour, and then you come back for group judging, and then the winners are announced. And then the winners come to dinner with us. I'm considered one of the partners, so we all go to dinner, and then the winners also win all of this stuff. Look at this. You get a Fujifilm camera, a think tank bag, a whole bunch, a Nissi filter kit, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. So you can have a look at that. 29th of October in Sydney. It is on the 12th of November in Melbourne. And I don't know whether I'll be in the Melbourne one yet or not. I might try and get down there as well. But great chance if you are sort of hanging out and you want to meet, come and hang out with me, then I would love to see you there. Who we got here? Hey there, Sam. I've got one of your pictures to critique today, Sam. Welcome. Alan, 30 degrees in Spain tomorrow. Nice and warm. Susan, went to Melbourne People with Cameras last year. Was great fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun, isn't it, Susan? So I suggest if you want to get along to it, like I said, I've been involved both years. And the way that they partner with people like me because we just help promote it. We don't get paid anything. There's no incentive for me to promote it. I just do it because Lee's a great guy from Fuji, and I love the event. The event they run is totally non-commercial. They don't try and sell you anything. They don't do anything. It's just a fun day out. So I'm a really big supporter of it, and I think it's a great excuse for you to get out, meet other photographers, and have a bit of fun. All right, so that's the first one. The other event I want to let you know about, and if you've been watching social media, you would have seen that we have released a second date for the 5-day Cradle Mountain Photo Tour in Tassie for May 2018. And the reason we did that was we released the first one. When I say we, it's me and this guy, Michael Sneddick, who runs these tours all the time. We released the first one, and it sold out in 5 days, or less than 5 days. We couldn't believe it. One of the challenges was a lot of my crew didn't get in. I think it was Brian booked in for the first one. And it was all of Michael's crew booked in for the first one, so it got booked out. So we've created a second one, and it's already half sold out, and I think 3 of those are on 3 Legs crew. So if you want to join me, it's pretty simple to do, and you can come from anywhere in the world. I know when I did my tour, when I met Michael back in 2013, I was on a photography tour in Tassie, and that's where I met Michael, but on that tour there were people from America there, so it's a great way if you're overseas to come and see a part of Tassie that, without a bit of local knowledge is not that easy to sort of find your way around. You've got to have national park passes and, the wildlife permits, etc. So if you want to join me for this tour, we still have, I think, 4 spots left. In the second tour, you can see it's from the 7th to the 11th of May 2018. I'm pretty sure all you've got to do is pay a $500 deposit to secure your spot, and then you've got until a month before next year to pay the balance. So it means that you can pay it off, you could save up, do whatever you want, and hang out with me and Michael for a 5-day tour. It's a lot of fun, and Cradle Mountain is just one of the most amazing places for photographers. Like I say, Samuel Allen's just put in there. I was up there last weekend. Cradle Mountain is amazing. Brian says, I hate you, Sam. I don't think he really means it. I think he's just jealous. But we will, so we've now got 4 spots left. 4, that's 4, yep. 4 spots left if you want to come and join us. Because it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. All right. Yes. Oh, by the way, I was going to show you this. This is all the people that support the people with cameras, just so you can see how many people are involved and supporting it. The ones in the black at the top are like the sponsors, Mindshift, Think Tank, and Nissi. Sponsors, and then everyone else is supporters or promoters or partners, I think they call us, partners. But a lot of people involved. And a lot of the people from these organisations come to the event as well. So if you want to meet somebody from any of these places, come along, join us, have a bit of fun. I'm going to be there, so if you want to come and meet up with me, that'd be good. Alrighty, so let's jump straight into something. I get asked a bit about using Lightroom or post-processing, and it's a tough one because I'm just setting up my screen so I can show you. It's a tough one because there are so many tutorials already online with the Lightroom, and so I mean everyone has their own styles, which is cool, but I think it's just about I thought what I'll do each week. I thought, well, each Pixel Chatter. I won't say each week because it's not every week. It's become the irregular weekly show. What I thought I would do is each week is I'd maybe share a tip with you to help you process your photos better in Lightroom. And I'm assuming most people using Lightroom. Hey, Big Oz has just jumped in. You missed the start, but you made it. That's all right. Reuven, good morning. Nice to have you in here. So I thought I'll just give you one tip a week or one tip an episode if I remember to do it. And hopefully it'll help you with your post-processing because there are a few different tricks you can use. So I'm going to show you my screen. This is from my trip last week. I was down at Bustleton Jetty. As you know, I've got this addiction for jetties. And I took this photo. It's at sunset. It wasn't much of a sunset, but this is at sunset. And you can see the colour in the sky is actually just a little bit of colour from smoke haze. They seem to be burning off everywhere at the moment, which is what they're doing. So I took this photo. This is at ISO 64, f9, and it's a 10-second exposure. And I think I had, a filter in. I would have had maybe a 0.6 soft grade in from memory, but I grabbed this photo, and there's a couple of things that you see these global adjustments. But what I'm going to show you a few of the tricks that I don't normally do on Pixel Chatter because it does hog a bit of the memory of the computer, and it may not work very well, but we'll try it. But in a photo like this, for example, where these buildings on the jetty are a bit dark, I would like to lighten those up. Now, there's a few ways you could do it. And if you've got any questions as I do this, feel free to drop them into the box. There's a few ways that I could do this, right? So let's just jump into the develop module. I could just hit the shadows up, right? And you'll see that straight away lighten up the buildings, but it also lightens up a lot of other things when you do that. And I mean, quite often I do that. I'll drop highlights down and I'll bring shadows up and I'll do something like that. But if you have a look at the buildings, let's zoom right in on those, you'll see that even doing that, they're a bit unevenly lit. Like the roofs look a bit artificial, sort of like as if I'd done HDR, and that's what this shadow thing does. Unfortunately, it can do some weird stuff. So what I tend to do, if I can, if I'm going to seriously process an image, is I'd like to select the buildings and just increase the highlight of them. Maybe the rocks over here. Like I like to do. It's sort of like dodging and burning, if you like, in the old days. If you think about when they used to process images in a darkroom in the old day, they did a thing called dodging and burning, and that was how they post-process. Now we can still do the same thing, but we do it inside digitally, in a digital darkroom rather than a real darkroom. So one of the things is if you use, let me just zoom in a bit more. If you use Photoshop, it's easy to make selections, but in Lightroom they don't have as many selection tools. So if we have a look at some of the tools, like if you grab a brush, for example, let's say I want to select just these, and I'll just click down here, see down the bottom here, let's pop that up, show selected mask overlay. If you tick that box there, okay, it'll show you where you're selecting. So I'm just gonna, my brush, I've put density to 100 and flow at 100 for my brush so you can really see what's going on. But as I brush, you'll see it goes red. Okay, so that's why I tick that box there. Show selected mask overlay. Now, if I wanted to select these, I could do it with my brush. But as you see my selections, they're sort of going over the edges. Now, why that's bad, if I turn the overlay off for a second, if I want to increase the exposure, you'll see that I'm going to get a halo effect. See how it's gone over the edges? Okay, so I'll just bring that back to the center. Put the overlay back on, and we're just going to remove that bit of brushing that I did. Come on, remove. There we go. So there's a little trick that you can do that makes Lightroom detect the edges of things. So with things with good contrast like these buildings, it works really well. All you do is, as you brush, you hold down the command on a Mac, or I think it's control, is it, on a PC? I think it is. But you hold down command, and as you do it, when you brush along now, so I'll just brush along there. Have I got a brush on? What's going on there? Sometimes it's just... Let's try again. Definitely got a brush on, haven't we? Let me just put it in the middle there. Yep. Okay, so you hold down command. There we go. So what I'm doing now is I'm holding down command and I'm brushing near the edge. But can you see that Lightroom is now detecting the edge and is not brushing over the edge? Even though I've got it feathered, it's finding the edge for me. So the difference now is, if I turn off the selection and I increase the exposure, you'll see I don't get the halo. It's just lighting up the buildings. See that? Now there's a very slight overlap. You can fix that later, but I'm zoomed right in. I'm at 2:1 here. So the beauty of this is, if I just want to light up these buildings, just with the exposure, hold down the command key, I can then just go through and be really quick now and still be accurate. See how it's just selecting the buildings for me? So it's a really cool trick. And then once you've got the edges, you just color in the rest until they're all red, and then you know you've got what you want selected. And I'll show you, we'll zoom out in a second when we make our adjustment. And this is why I say to people now, you don't need Photoshop anymore unless you're going to get more complex. For your basic photo editing, this is all you need. Lightroom allows you to do so much these days. I'm going to put a bit of a... I've really got a bit crazy with the darkness of it. You don't need it to be 100% like that. I'm just going to colour in the bottom here a bit, so it's not totally different. And then I'll show you why I'm doing this. Let's zoom back out now. Let's go out to 1:1. Let's get rid of the mask overlay. Now that I've got those buildings selected, get rid of the overlay, there we go. Now I've got the building selected, I can actually increase the exposure of just the buildings. So you see how I can do that? I'll go crazy, but so I can now... It's not the greatest selection in the world. I could have done better, actually. You can see where I've missed some spots. That's okay, but it gives you an idea, right? So now when I change the exposure of the buildings, you see I don't get the haloing effect. So it's a really cool way if you want to dodge and burn something, right? That's almost up a whole... I'll make it one exposure value. So there's one right there, one exposure value. So you can see the difference if I now fit the whole image in. Let's go to fit. And let me just remove that brush. You can now see how the buildings stand out. And, you know, just that one little change makes a big difference to the overall image. Now, the selection was very rough because I was just showing you here. And there's a lot of lag. Believe it or not, as I'm brushing, it's taking about 5 seconds for the red to appear. And that's because we're live streaming at the same time. But it gives you an idea, right? So just a tip for you. So if you want to make selections and you want to do edge detection like that, and it would work even on things like this water here, it would work, you know, where the water meets the sand. So if you wanted to lighten the sand up or maybe you want to change the color temperature of the water to make it bluer or something, you'd be able to select the edge very easily by holding down your command key on a Mac. And I'm pretty sure it's a control key on the PC. Somebody else might be able to. I haven't used a PC for so long. Somebody else might be able to clarify that. But it's these little power, I call them power tips, I guess. They're things that most people don't learn because there's no, unless you go into and do a bit of training or learning yourself, you're not going to find these things. It's not, all these shortcuts aren't easy to find. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you enjoyed that, let me know, and I'll include one of those every Pixel Chatter, because I get a lot of questions about how to use Lightroom. I'll just go back to the image for a tick, and I'll show you the before and the after, just so you can see why I do that type of thing. I'll zoom in a bit. Let's go to 1:1, so you can see the buildings there. That was before, so you can see how dark they are, and that was after. You can see the difference? It's pretty cool. And little things like that can just make a big difference to your image, overall when you finished it. And, it can take a long time to, unfortunately it can take a long time sometimes to edit a photo if you go in with all that detail. So I'm just putting my desktop back to what I need it to be so I can do the pixel image critiques. Here we go. Come on, computer. All right, so I'll go back into here. I'm going to okay, here we go. Fantastic. It's control on Windows. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, control plus selection tool of the PC. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but it's just something for you to think about. So if you want to dodge and burn your images, and I think realistically that's the that's the trick that Ansel Adams used to use. Everyone. It's funny, when we got into the digital darkroom age, how many people oppose post-producing your images. The reality is, back in the days of Ansel Adams, if you don't know who he is, then you need a good uppercut to go back and have a look. But Ansel Adams, he used to dodge and burn his images in a darkroom. But the same thing, right? It's post-production. So I'm a great fan of doing that. If you really want your images to stand out, these little things make all the difference between your photo and somebody else's. So, of course, composition, all of those things are important as well. And that photo, by the way, I'm cropping into a panoramic image. I'm still working on it. I'll show you, actually. I'll jump back into Lightroom. Let me find my library for WA. And then I'll find the image and I'll show you my... I'm currently working on it. Where is it? So, let me now bring this up. It's still not finished, but still working on it. So I'll just fit it in. So, and what I want to do with this image is I want to put it onto a canvas and hang it. So the good thing with the D810, the D850 would be even better with the 45 megapixels, but with the 30, even with the 36 megapixel sensor, we've still got a lot of pixels left here. You can see if you look on the right hand side that it's 7,100 pixels wide. So it's still a nice wide image. But still working on this one. Still a lot of work to do. This has just had its global adjustments done. Now what I do is I go in and I do my local adjustments. So it's had the quick adjustments done, and next is to get into the more complex stuff to get that happening. But had a great time in WA. And by the way, Southwest WA, I tell you what, once you get south of Bustles and Jetty, some of the coastline down there, it's just amazing. I'll be getting back over there. I've got some images from down the very south. Let me see if I can show you one of those. This place called Sugarloaf Rock. And unfortunately, I was there during the day. Yeah, here we go. Like just after lunch. So I was, there we go here. And it was really windy. And I put the 10-stop filter on the Lee Big Stopper and just started mucking around. And this is Sugarloaf Rock, just a top location. And there's a lot of coastline like this down there, so I'll definitely be getting back down there. And all these images are still got to be processed. It's just one's not quite done yet. Got a lot of stuff going on. All right, let's quickly check the chat box, and then we'll get into some image critiquing. Darkroom was hard work. Yeah, I remember doing darkroom at school, but I don't I mean, I don't think we really appreciated how hard it was when I was in high school. I think because back then, there was a lot of stuff done for you, I guess, by the teacher or the school, and you just sort of jumped in there and mucked around. I think these days it would be difficult. Ansel Adams, the legendary guy, yes, very much so. Scott, good morning. How did I like Busso? Loved it. Loved Bustleton, great spot. Grew up in Margs, which is Margaret River, that's the local talk, and then moved to Busso, which is for Bustleton Jetty. So I know the area well, yeah. Nice spot, really liked it down there. I didn't get a cracker of a sunset, unfortunately, but loved it down there. Really nice coastline. I was lucky the day before I headed down there, I was up in Mandurah and I hired a Cessna 172 from Murrayfield Airport, and I went flying for the day, and me and a buddy flew down all the way down to Cape Naturalist, checking out on the coastline and doing a bit of whale spotting, which was cool, really nice. Alrighty. How far from the coast am I? I am, you mean in Sydney? I'm about an hour from the coast, so not too far. Brian, he's asking Sam a question. All right. Okay. So let's get stuck into some image critiquing. I'll jump in here. Image critique. And I've got 3 images. Hey, Colin, good morning. 3 images that I'm going to share with you today. Alrighty. And I want to thank the following people for sending their images in. We've got Sam Allen, who's in the chat box. Ren Thielen, who I haven't seen in the chat box. So maybe he's not with us this morning. But it was good. I caught up with him in WA, as I said before, a lot of fun. And Camera Crusades, who his name is John. So, I don't think he is here either. No. Alrighty, let's jump straight into these images. Okay, so here's the 3 images that we're going to be looking at today. We've got Sam's on the left there, which has an interesting story with it. Very brave man, Sam. We'll talk about that in a second. Second one was Ren Thielen's, and the third one is John's, Camera Crusades. So let's start off with this one here. So this is Sam Allen's, and it's a pic he took of a place called South Cape Bay, which is at the bottom of Tasmania. He said to take I don't know if you can see the waves coming in out here, but he said to take this picture. This is funny. To take this picture, I had to run 20 metres onto the rocks, set up, and take the image before the waves returned in a few moments. So to stop himself from getting wet, he said where the pic was taken would soon be about 1 metre underwater, and it took about 10 attempts, but happy with the image. Image was taken at sunrise, but a few clouds in the horizon kills the golden lights. Well, Sam, first of all, that's dedication. Well done. I don't know too many people that would do that, and it would have been, I'm sure, a bit slippery in spots on these rocks looking at them. A lot of green stuff going on there. But let's jump in and do a bit of critiquing. First of all, let's have a look at the EXIF information. ISO 100, which is cool. Shooting with the 700D, the Canon. So I believe ISO 100 is the lowest you can get down native. Then you've got 16mm, so you're using a 11 to 16mm lens. So you've zoomed it in as far as you can go. We'll talk about that in a second. I think you could probably have shot it a little wider, because it's cropped a little bit close to the right of that mountain, but I don't know what's on the... I can see something else starting there, and I'm not sure what else is there. And then you've got f5.6, which give you 1/100th of a second. And I think you probably could have shot it at a higher aperture, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. But that's the data, so we sort of get a feel for what's going on here. In fact, let's jump straight into the develop now that we know that, and let's talk about a couple of things. Let's go hide this bar down the bottom so we get, because Sam sent me a nice big image. Now, if we zoom in on this big rock here, you'll see it's not in focus. It's not as sharp as it could be. And the reason for that is if we zoom in down here, you'll see that all of this is relatively sharp. I'll just go back to 1:1. So you can see all of this here is really in focus. Now the thing you got to watch is as soon as you start opening an aperture up, is your depth, what they call depth of field. And I know most of you have heard of this or probably know about it, but knowing about it's not enough. It's about thinking about it when you're out in the field. So first of all, when you're gonna focus, you're up against the elements here anyway, Sam. but you can see how sharp and nice and clear everything is down here. As soon as you get up here, it's all blurry. Realistically, if I zoom in, let's zoom in into the seaweed here. You probably should have focused, I'd say, on the seaweed, but you can see it's already out of focus here. You got to focus a bit deeper into the image, and the reason you've got to do that is because by focusing so far back, all you're getting in focus is probably to here, about halfway up the image, and then the rest is starting to go out of focus. And in a landscape photo, that's not going to work. It doesn't work. It's you'd be better off now forgetting that mountain and just cropping the rocks in like that, because now you've got a picture of sharp rocks, which doesn't work, but because the back of it's just out of focus. Now, on a small photo in Facebook or something like that, it's not going to matter. People aren't going to notice. But if you're really seriously going to print this, and you can just see straight away it's blurry. It's just out of focus. So that's my first tip, is when you're shooting landscapes, you've got to be mindful of your aperture. So f5.6, this lens here, the 11-16, it was probably the Nikon or something like that. I don't know what lens it was. It doesn't tell me the model of the lens, just tells me it was 11-16. It'd be nice if it told me the model, but it doesn't. But it's really important that, you think about that. And I can just see the focal point for this has been right here. If you have a look, you can see how sharp it is here. So there's sort of tip number one, is make sure you're focusing further into your image and you're shooting at a higher f number. So f9, f10, f11, typically on most wide-angle lenses will give you a sharp image all the way through. Depends on the lens, but as a rule of thumb, that would typically give you that sharp image all the way through. Now, you've got 1/100th of a second with this. It was a Nikon, okay, yeah. So with that focal length, you can afford to drop that shutter speed down. If you think about, you never want your shutter speed to be lower than your focal length if you're handheld. And I don't know whether you handheld this or if you tripoded it, but I'm assuming because you said you ran in and out that it could have been handheld. Don't know, unless you just quickly whacked your tripod up, took some photos, and then ran out. Don't know what you did there. But even if you were handheld, you still had room to move, where you could come down to 1/25th of a second and still be safe. And to give you what that would have done, when you go to 1/50th of a second, would have been increasing your aperture, and then 1/25th again. So you would have got 2 stops in total. Focused on infinity, but it's about where the focal point is. Well, the focal point definitely is here in the front here, so you can see here. So you've definitely focused in the foreground. It's out of focus in the background, for whatever reason. On a tripod, okay, yep. So even on a tripod, you could have got even slower. So there was no limiting factor. So you should always try and shoot f11, something like that if you can, when you're doing landscape, especially if you're in a tripod, because you're going to get a sharper image all the way through. The one thing you can't fix in post-production is focus. I believe that's going to change in the future, but right now you can't fix it. So you want to make sure you get it right. All right, let me just check the Lex B. Hi. Yeah, Lex, if you want an image critique, and by the way, I'm running out of images to critique because no one sent me any for a while. So in the description is an email address for you to send them. Send me 3 images, decent quality with EXIF information and a bit of a story of how you took it as well. So anyway, from a technical aspect, hopefully that helps everybody, because I think that's important. It's just important to think about that when you're shooting. from a composition point of view, I love this shot. I'm a big fan of leading lines that are from the natural landscape like this, where you've got these rocks leading the eye in, the channels of water leading the eye in. I would have, I just think it's cropped a bit tight, and I know the sky wasn't interesting, but it just feels to me like it was cropped a bit tight. The other thing is it's, I think Sam said he says, I've done very little post editing on this, so I would be interested to see what you might improve. Once again, let's jump straight into the develop module. I'll just do a couple of quick things. Now, to really quickly make some changes, highlights down, shadows up, shift double click whites, shift double click blacks. You've gone a bit crazy there, bring the exposure back down. Let's just drop those shadows back down a bit too crazy. Warm it up just a tad, just to there. Okay, yeah, it's going to be hard because this mountain in the background's out of focus. I can't really focus on it. Pardon the pun. There seems to be some blackness going on. Did you have a filter on, Sam, of some sort? Did you have a filter? I'm just going to drag a gradient filter over this. Just see if we can improve that a bit. Bring a bit more of that sunlight in. Look at that artificial sunrise. In fact, let's add some colour to that. Let's bring that back. Come back, you. All right, let's warm that up. Look at that. It's a little bit of warmth into it. So what I've done there is I've got a gradient filter, and I'm just adding some warmth to it in the temperature. Just a little bit, not much. And about 1.5 stops of light as well. Had a CPL filter on, okay. So you can see I've sort of dragged the light in, if you like. What's happened though is the foreground's very different in light, in sort of exposure, and that's because of the shadows. So let's drag another filter up from the bottom, like so, and let's just bring the exposure up on that foreground there. That's good, that'll do. Let's just bring the overall exposure down a tad more. There we go. And because I like the foreground so much, let's grab what will we do? Yeah, let's do another gradient filter. Drag it up from the bottom, like so. Grab the clarity slider and really crank that up a bit, not too much. And let's try a bit of dehaze to take the reflection off the water. And by the way, you see the dehaze? See how it takes the reflection out of the water? If you forget to put a CPL on and there's a lot of reflections, I find dehaze does a good job. So if you have a look, if I leave it in the middle there, just have a look at the bottom right hand corner here. Watch as I increase the dehaze just a little bit. See that? So it takes the reflection out. It's almost like it's like polarizing after the effect. It's kind of cool. Okay, I like that one. Another little Lightroom power tip for you there. All right. Overall, I'm just gonna just get that tint right, the color right. It's a tough one. Let me find a bit of white. Can I set the white balance? Why not? Okay. No, I don't like that. Lightroom doesn't get that right very often. Let me see. I think it's about there. Alrighty. Very quick edit. Before and after, you ready? Let's do it. Before, after. Ooh, probably a bit too HDR on the front here. Too much clarity. We'll just bring that back. Overdid the clarity. Overdid the clarity. Alright, there we go. Before and after. Before, after. What do you think? Shadows here. When you bring shadows up, unfortunately, sometimes it does. That's why I don't use it all the time. I think that looks better. Let's have a look. Before and after. Needs a bit more contrast. There we go. And I'm doing this very basically. But just give you an idea, right? Don't be afraid to post-process your images. You'll end up with something a lot more dynamic, a lot more... Because what comes out of a camera, as you can see this here, is quite flat. But also, you've got to think about what your eyes see. Your eyes are very clever instruments. So when you're out there having a look at a scene, your eyes have a huge dynamic range. I can't remember what I read once. I think it was about 13 stops or something, or 15 stops of dynamic range. So your eyes see something completely different to what a camera does. Now, it depends. I mean, these new cameras are really doing amazing things. Like the new Nikon D850, I've heard, is just crazy. The Fujifilm GFX, crazy. You know, these cameras have got sensors in that are picking up all the light. You know, and the 700D has picked up a lot of the light, but it just doesn't know how to expose it all at once. Because remember, when you take the photo, especially if you have aperture priority or shutter priority set, and I always shoot on aperture priority, it's making decisions based on how you tell it to evaluate the light in your image. So if you're choosing evaluative or matrix metering, it'll take light from the entire scene and try and work out how much light there is. If you do, you know, you might have center weighted or spot weighted, who knows, right? So it's taking a metering off of something. Now, I always try and use evaluative or matrix metering, where it takes the light from all 4 different quadrants and the center of your image, and that way you get a fairly good even exposure. And from that, then you can start to make your adjustments. Now, if I quickly jump back into this photo, you can sort of see that it's pretty well exposed, but there is some here that the shadows are too dark. So you can see, and this is the... Okay, let me go back to the... So you can sort of see when you start to make changes there. This is with my changes. So now I've made some of the shadows too dark, and you know, the only way to get rid of that is to change the blacks, and it's underexposed instead of those spots. So those spots, I can't even save any of those spots. All the information's lost. So you got to be careful when you're now that's not important. That's not huge. That those spots are okay to be pure black, but I would see if you could try and make it so you get that even exposure. You know, when you look at your histogram, if we have a look at the histogram up on the right hand side here, you can see all the pixels bunched up to the left, and it doesn't matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to save them. Now, having said that, there's also pixels bunched up to the right. So, you know, this is where dynamic range is a big issue, and that's why filters come in, or you might take 2 shots at different exposure values, so you can then get all the shadows as well. But where you see blue is overexposed. Let's see, where's the red? Not easy to see. Let me turn off the blues. Just here in the waves, which is very common. See this here? It's very common to overexpose whitewash because it picks up all the light. So you can see all of that. And all it does means you're losing the detail on those pixels. So you just got to be really careful. So you've actually got an image here with a huge dynamic range, Sam, and it was probably going to be hard to save anyway. Hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully I found that helpful. All right, let's jump into the other 2 images. Where am I? Go back into the library. But good spot, Sam, and well done on, you know, pretty brave running in and out down there. I'm trying to find my... All right, let's jump into the next one. Okay, I can... Alrighty, let's color cast, good stuff. Oh yeah, let's see. Just looking at the comments. You're welcome, Sam. Hopefully, you found that helpful, buddy. Like I say, all these, you know, everyone that sends their photos in for critique, it's always, you know, just my point of view. Doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. Nothing like that. It's all about just helping you, and if I can help you with just, you know, 1 or 2 tips that helps you from my experience, then that's good. I think once you've shot a lot of images, I think, what is it, Ansel Adams said it's the first 10, was it him? No, Henry Cartier said the first 10,000 images are your worst. I'm definitely past the 10,000 image point, and I still take some bad photos, so there you go. Just happens. All right, let's jump into the next one. The next one is from Ren Thielen. Now, Ren took this of, what is this? Some dam somewhere. Wellington Dam. There we go. Wellington Dam. I've no idea where that is. Is it in New Zealand, Wellington? Is there a Wellington, WA? I don't know. I don't think Ren's in here. Anyway, let's have a look at the details, and I'm sure Ren will catch up on it later, but we'll all learn from Ren's photo here. So, if you have a look at the details of this, ISO 100, good. He's shooting with a Nikon D70-200, so that's the lowest ISO. It's its native. 18mm, so he's shooting with an 18 to 35mm lens. So he's gone as wide as he can. F10, so good aperture for sharpness throughout the image, and we'll have a look at that in a second. And he's ended up with 1/80th of a second, so that all works good. All right, let's jump into the develop module, and let's see what we can do with this. Once again, Ren has sent me a nice big image. So, if we have a look, pretty sharp all the way through. Could be a bit sharper up that end. Let's have a look down here. It's actually a little bit out of focus all through. Now, why is that? Interesting. It's a little bit out of focus throughout. Not hugely. You could save it with this bit of sharpening. But I'm seeing a little bit out of focus, I think. Yeah, it definitely is. So maybe there was some camera shake. Maybe it was windy. I don't know. It's probably it's hard to see because I don't have a big image. Might just be pixelating because I'm zooming in. It looks like it's in focus when I'm zoomed out. So we'll just say it's in focus throughout. And the focus is consistent, so that's good. And that works well. Now, for me, there's a few things about this image that I would definitely change. When you zoom in on something, you've got to be careful about how you start, because your composition is key. There's a few elements here that are really quite distracting, and they just don't sort of sit well with me. One is the top of this mountain is cut off. From a composition point of view, by including this mountain, I say to myself, well, what would I lose? Okay, well, I would lose this pipe down the bottom. Well, it's ugly anyway. So for me, I would have tilted the camera up. Now, we know he shot this at as wide as he could go, and I'm going to assume that he couldn't have moved back because he's on the wall of something. So, point the camera up. A couple of things that would do for you. Number one is it would move this road on the right-hand side, this leading line. It would probably move it down into a better position, although it's okay coming out there. It would get rid of this pipe, so we didn't need to look at that because it's not adding anything. Either of these trees in the foreground, I think it would have been nice to see the sky. Once again, the image is quite flat as well, so it's really important when you put your pictures into your Lightroom, don't be afraid to boost things a little bit up. Even things like vibrance, for example, you can see you hit the vibrance up, and you're gonna improve the quality of your image. I'll just bring the color back. So I'm just going to show you. A lot of people are afraid to do vibrance, but if I just pick the vibrance up a bit, probably not that much. Let me just bring that back just a tad. Now that's all that is a vibrance adjustment, and then I've just readjusted the white balance, which is another good thing. If you want to see what your white balance is doing, put the vibrance up and then adjust your white balance. So you can sort of see what's going on with the color. Now I've got to try and make it look natural again. So you drag your temperature back and then drop your vibrance back down. You're going to have something that's much more natural. Now if I show you the before and the after, that's before and that's after. Okay, you can see the difference in the, straight away you can see a difference in the quality of the image. It just makes it look better. So you could do something simple like that. This down here, the water, is quite a higher exposure than anything else, which is always going to happen. So just drop your highlights down a bit, and you can see as soon as I do that, see the detail comes back into the water. We're also getting details in the clouds. Not that we can see many of them, but as soon as I drop the highlights, detail on the water. Okay, so it makes the water interesting as opposed to just some overexposed mush of water. Now there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can do it by the whole image, which in this image doesn't seem to matter too much. I'll bring the shadows up a bit so I can just balance it out. Or if I just reset those back to 0, I can always use a brush, bring my highlights right down, and just brush over the water. See that? and just reduce the highlights over the water. Once again, a bit like dodging and burning. Yep. Okay, and then just sort of blend it in around it. I've got a it at 100% at the moment, which I probably shouldn't. There we go. There we go. So you can see straight away, it just brings the detail back in that water. Once I've brushed it, then I can make my adjustments as to how much of it I want on there. So I'm going to put it about there. Okay, so that's my water adjustment. So without globally adjusting the entire photo now, I've adjusted the vibrance and I've done that globally, but then I've adjusted just the water. So the water doesn't look so, so, I guess, prominent. Let's just increase the exposure slightly on the whole image, just slightly, about a third of a stop. There we go. I think that's a better exposure. Once again, just keep an eye on the histogram. You can see there's no clipping of the shadows or the highlights in this now. So it's really well exposed. The other thing I would then say is, okay, something like this with a lot of detail in it, you've got to decide where do you want to draw the eye. Now, I reckon the dam is good, the water's good, and this little road's good. So grab a brush, reset everything back to 0, and drag your clarity all the way to 100, and brush in things like, that you want the detail to stand out. Like the dam, I think the dam could stand out nicely, like so. The water, and there's a bridge down here. And all I'm doing is just brushing over them with clarity. That's it. Okay, and the clarity, what the clarity does is just really accentuates those things so they stand out more, and end up with something that's just a little bit more interesting. Okay, we'll just wait for Lightroom to catch up. There we go. All right. So now let's look at a before and after. Before and after. Okay. So technically, a few things going on. You can see before the white balance is off. You can see that it's a bit flat. The water is overexposed. A few little changes, and you've got an image that looks a lot more interesting. For me, the composition is just out. I would have, like I said, raised the lens up and try to get more of the sky in. If it was windy, maybe put a big stopper on to get some moving clouds, and then you could decide to blend the two images together with your moving clouds, and up to you how you do it. But as you can see, it's sort of some little simple fixes. Only takes a couple of minutes, and you end up with an image that's much easier to look at. And hopefully that's helped you, Ren. Alrighty. And I think it's always a good idea. Just look at your before and afters as you go through and you're editing your images, and you'll soon get a feel for what changes you've made and what effects they're having, and you can decide then whether or not you like them. All right, let's jump into the final image. I know we're running out of time. Let's jump in. Okay. Hope you all enjoyed today's Pixel Chatter. All right, so this final image is from Camera Crusades. His name is John Manjot. Hopefully I got that right. And Valley of Fire it's called. I don't know where it is. It's called the Valley of Fire. And I really like it. I like all these lines in the rock leading the eye up to this. And then he's got these opposing lines up in the sky, which are almost like a reflection of some of the white lines in the rock, which is just freaky, but it's happened. And I think it just all really works nicely together. Once again, though, when you've got extreme highlights, so you see the sun hitting the side of the rock here, and then extreme shadows here, you've got this dynamic range issue going on. And if we jump into the develop module straight away, I can guarantee there'll be some shadows. Yep, so I can see some blue spots, see that there. Nothing major, but lost the information on those pixels. And you can also see over here some highlights. See that? So this is probably the best exposure you could possibly get. You've got to have to make that compromise without doing HDR. Just as simple as that. So let me now turn those off. So if I wanted to try and do something about that, I guess I could bring the shadows up a bit, and I could drop the highlights a bit. Bring the shadows up a little bit more, but you've got to be careful. There we go. Let's see what happens. We'll bring the whites up again. Sort the blacks out. Bit of contrast. All right, from a composition point of view, All right, let me start again. Let's go from technical aspect first. ISO 100, probably the lowest you could go. What camera was he using? Let's have a look. Canon 5D Mark III. Yep, I'm pretty sure that's the base ISO. 24mm on a lens, which he was using the 24 to 105, so that's cool. As wide as he could go. F11, good aperture for this type of shot, and 1/25 of a second, so all good. Technically, all good. Composition-wise, I probably would have liked to have seen a bit more move back, but I wasn't there. The thing I would change probably slightly, if you have a look at the rule of thirds, this is on the intersection, but it's high, so I probably would have moved it down slightly, and just include, that sky's interesting, so I would have probably foregone a little bit of the foreground to get a bit more of the sky in, and just, that would have moved all of this big rock structure just down slightly, but that's being picky. It's pretty good. I like it. I think it's a good, relatively good composition. The other thing I would have done is probably moved my camera to the left slightly to just cut it off. In fact, I'll do it now. Let's just crop it. Let's crop it in a bit and make it a panoramic, but more of a vertical pano. Yeah, I actually like that. Let's just bring it in just a little smidgen more. Like that. There we go. So you end up with this vertical pano. But it's a nice image. I think, it's hard with something like this. It is hard to work out what to do, but I really do like, I don't know if you can see this white line here coming in and this white line here. They sort of match with this white line here and this white line here. If you have a look at the shape of that one, sort of shaped like that one, and that one sort of shaped like this one. I mean, it's all fluke, but wow. And then where it's all fluffy over here sort of matches where it's all fluffy over here. I need a little bit more to the left. I don't know why. Maybe it should have been a landscape orientation, not portrait. But everything else is good. Focus is good. Light's nice. Composition's relatively good. Technically, it's good. Good shot. I'm going to say good shot, Camera Crusades. Even the post-processing, I haven't done a great deal, but you can see the difference in what I've done has just brought it to life that little bit. And this is one I would definitely grab a brush of clarity. Let's do it. Let's grab a clarity brush and give these rocks a really good hit, because it'll just bring them to life. And same with these couple of lines down here. Just hit it with a clarity brush like that. Done. And you'll just see what a difference it makes. See that? Just makes such a big difference to the photo. That's without, that's after. Before, after. Before, after. All right. So, there we go. Alrighty. Hopefully you found all that helpful today. I'm going to jump into the question box. So if you've got any questions, please ask me now, and I will do my best to answer them. And if you've got a social media that you would like to share with everybody in the chat box, feel free to share it now, because I encourage you all to get to know each other. Let me have a look. What have we got here? Mason says, at Sam, nice composition and idea. Yeah, it was good, buddy. Now you can go back down there, because I think you're in Tassie, aren't you, Sam? So you're making us all jealous. You live there. Here we go. Should I send an... So Mason has asked, should I send an edited image or just a raw file? No, send me your final image of what you've edited. Just leave it at a decent size. So if you can make it, at least a few thousand pixels at its widest edge, then that gives me the opportunity to zoom in. Because you'll see when people send me really small photos, I can't zoom in. Is where you see this one here, I can zoom right in and still get a good idea of what's going on focus-wise and technically. Even that looks good like that. Look at that for a composition. Let's. Oh, you can't see me doing that, can you? I haven't switched back to my screen. Sorry, guys. I'm going to recrop this. Watch this. Sometimes I was just saying before, maybe it would have worked out better landscape. Let's do it like this. And I'm going to show you. Sometimes, you've just got to try different things. Have a look at that. Totally different image. Totally different. There we go. All right. Any questions? Put them in the chat box. Yeah, so send your images through. Like I said, I'd love some more images for Pixel Chatter. Send them through to me at ben@on3legs.com. That's with the word 3, ben@on3legs.com. It's in the description below this video, and you can send them through. Just make sure you got your XF information so I can see how the image was shot, a bit of a story about the image, and keep it at a decent resolution. If you do 3,000 pixels on the widest edge, it gives me the opportunity to be able to take a look at it and know, by looking at the details, I can at least see what it is that you've done, and I can have a look at the detail of the photos and make sure that I'm able to see everything. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say by having it at a decent file size. When they're really small and I zoom in, they're just pixels. It's just too hard to see anything. Alrighty, well, hopefully you enjoyed this week's show. I will wrap it up here if there's no other questions or anything. Once again, thank you for the support I get on Patreon. Those of you that are VIPs, the VIP group on Facebook is alive and well. If you want to be a part of that VIP group, just go across to patreon.com/on3legs and you can join up as a Patreon and show your support. You don't have to, of course. All the content's always free. But the VIPs do get a little bit of extra love. Chat with me one-on-one inside the VIP group. And so if you want to get involved in that, you can. If not, all cool. Happy with that as well, but really appreciate the support. The other way that you can support the channel, by the way, is by sharing it with friends, groups. If you're in a photography group, let other people know about it. I was really stoked to have Gary Goff, who's another photographer in the UK, made me his photographer of the week and got a whole bunch of other likes. And I'd actually never heard of him or seen him, and yet he's got a sort of similar size following on YouTube. So it just shows me that YouTube is not great at letting you know about other photographers. So if you are talking to other people, follow other people, and you think they'd like my channel, feel free to share that with everybody. I'd love for you to do that. Alrighty. Thank you. You're welcome, Greg. Thanks, Sam, Brian, Zora, Tommy, Marsden, Brian, and Anthony. Appreciate you dropping by and joining me for Pixel Chatter Live. Until next week, get out there and take some photos.